I wasn't trying to make friends. I'd moved here to disappear. The building was the kind you forget as soon as you leave it. Gray, flat, 3 stories, with walls that smelled faintly of dust and detergent. Perfect. No questions, no noise. Just a place to be quiet in. That was the point. So when I saw him struggling with 2 bags of groceries on the front steps, my first instinct was to walk past. But then he looked up. He had that kind of face that doesn't ask, just waits. Older, late 40s maybe, with kind eyes and that slow, thoughtful pause before he spoke. "Would you mind?" he asked, holding out a bag like he already knew I'd say yes. I said, "Sure." His name was Simon. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. I was 2A, right below. We climbed the stairs slowly. He had apparently twisted something in his knee, and as we reached his door, he fumbled for keys and nodded toward the groceries. "You can just set them on the kitchen table, if you don't mind stepping in." I hesitated, then stepped inside. The layout was familiar, like looking at a mirror and not realizing it until a second too late. Same open kitchen, same narrow hall with scuffed wooden floors, same creaking radiator by the window that wheezed like a smoker on cold nights. But what made me stop, what actually made my breath catch, was the photo. A small framed one on the bookshelf near the window. Black and white, slightly out of focus. A woman in profile. It was just the angle, the shadows, but it looked like me. "Is that your sister?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Simon glanced over and smiled, too quickly. "No, just a photo I picked up at a flea market. I like collecting old portraits." I nodded. He thanked me again. I left. I didn't say anything else. But the moment I stepped back into my apartment, I locked the door behind me and checked my own bookshelf. There was no photo like that in my apartment. But everything else? Everything else was the same. The blinds were closed when I went to sleep. I'm sure of that. I remember pulling them shut, tucking the corners, turning off the lamp. I remember the darkness, the kind that feels safe because it belongs to you. But when I woke up the next morning, they were open. Just slightly, just enough. A single sliver of daylight cut through, like a question I couldn't answer. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I hadn't pulled the cord all the way. Maybe they slipped open during the night. But then it happened again and again. Always just a few inches. Always in the same direction. The side that faced the building across the way. Simon's window. I started watching it. Not obsessively. Not at first. Just when I was drinking coffee or reading or pretending to scroll through my phone without refreshing the same empty apps. Sometimes the curtains were open, sometimes closed. Once, I swear I saw a camera lens glint in the dark. Just for a second, like a trick of the light. Like the kind of thing you can only half believe you saw after it's gone. I stood frozen for maybe 5 whole minutes after that. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then I turned away. That night, I sat by my window with the lights off. Just watching. Not thinking about the fact that I hadn't been eating, not thinking about how long it had been since I called anyone, not thinking about how Simon had said my name before I ever told him. Just watching. And sometime after 2 a.m., I heard it. A faint click, mechanical, deliberate. Not from my side of the wall, from his.
I didn't plan to go inside. I was just dropping off a misdelivered package, small, unmarked, left at my door with his apartment number scribbled across the label. I could have left it on the mat, could have knocked and walked away, but the door wasn't closed. It hung open by a few inches, just like my blinds, like an invitation pretending to be an accident. I knocked once, softly. No answer. "Simon?" I called, already halfway through the doorway. The lights were off, but the afternoon sun filtered in weakly through the curtain gaps. Everything was still. Too still. I stepped inside. The living room was clean, almost sterile. No clutter, no shoes by the door, not cups left out, not even a stray book on the table. It looked like it belonged to someone who didn't really live in it, or someone who was waiting for a guest and didn't want them to know him at all. The hallway was darker. One door was shut. The others were cracked open just slightly. I don't know why I reached for the brass handle of the door at the end. Curiosity, maybe? Or dread disguised as instinct. It opened with a creak that sounded like it hadn't been used in a long time. The room was an office. No, not really. It had a desk, yes, but no computer, no pens, no paperwork. Just a table and a wall, covered in photographs. I stopped breathing. They were of me. Different angles, different times of day, some through my window, me brushing my hair, cooking, falling asleep on the couch, some taken from street level, some from inside my apartment. One showed me turning my head toward the lens, like I'd heard something but didn't see it. I could almost hear the sound of it now. The click I'd tried to convince myself wasn't real. I stumbled backward, bumped the desk. A drawer slid open an inch. Inside, neatly stacked, were more photos. Labeled, dated. Each one had my name written in block letters on the back. Ava Harlan. Unit 2A. My vision blurred. I backed out of the room, out of the hallway, out of his apartment. Left the door hanging open behind me, just like I'd found it. Back in my place, I sat with my back against the front door for a long time. Then I got up, crossed to the mirror in the hallway, and stared at my own face. Why would he do this? The part of me that whispered back didn't sound surprised. It sounded familiar. I didn't sleep. Not really. I laid on top of the sheets with the lights on, my shoes still on, like I needed to be ready to run. Like if I closed my eyes, I'd wake up in his apartment instead of mine. By morning, I couldn't tell if the dread in my chest was fear or fury. I went back. He opened the door like he'd been expecting me. Same quiet face, same unhurried expression, like nothing was strange.
"Did you get your package?"
He asked, calm as ever. What the hell is wrong with you? I was shaking, but my voice stayed sharp. His eyes didn't move, just studied me. You went into the room. Not a question, not even surprised. You're insane, I hissed. You've been watching me, photographing me. He stepped aside from the doorway, but didn't move closer. Ava, you used to live here. The sentence hit me like a migraine behind the eyes. What? He spoke slowly, carefully, like I was fragile or easily frightened. "Before the episode, before your name changed, you asked me to help you forget, and now you're coming back to it. You're retracing, repeating." "No," I said, backing away. "You're doing something to me. You've been in my place." He looked at me gently. "Ava, you never left." I ran. Down the hall, down the stairs, through the lobby. I needed a door that locked behind me, one that didn't know my name. But the whole way down, one question pounded in my head louder than my footsteps. What if he's not making me remember something that didn't happen? What if he's reminding me of something I asked him to hide? I tore my apartment apart. Every drawer, every box, every zippered pouch I hadn't opened since the move. I emptied my closet, flipped the mattress, pried the back off picture frames. I didn't even know what I was looking for, just that I had to find it before my mind turned against me completely. Because either Simon was lying, or I was. There was a moment in the middle of it all when I sat on the floor surrounded by the bones of my life. Shoes, receipts, wires, notebooks I forgot I owned. And I had this quiet, awful thought. I don't remember what used to be mine. Then I noticed the vent. It was half loose in the closet ceiling, a little crooked, a little dustier than the rest of the trim. I climbed a chair and tugged. It came free with a metallic snap. Inside was a plastic bag, taped shut, dry, light. I opened it on the floor. Photographs. Stacks of them. Me. Again. Only these weren't taken by someone else. These were intentional, framed, labeled, and written on the back of each one in my handwriting. Number 17, smile looks fake, try again. Number 22, not enough space between blinds, reshoot with sunset. Number 39, don't forget, this is the version you liked best. My hands went cold. It wasn't just documentation, it was direction. Like I'd been staging my life, repeating moments, editing myself. Like I was both the subject and the observer. At the very bottom of the stack was a single photo of Simon. Not candid, posed, taken in the same room with the wall of pictures. On the back, "He'll remember for you." I don't know how long I sat there. The photos were still on the floor, scattered like fallen thoughts. My fingers had gone numb, but I kept turning them over, one by one, as if eventually one of them would blink and confess it was fake. None of them did. I went to the mirror, not for answers, just to see if I still recognized myself. But the face that looked back felt out of sync. Not entirely wrong, just off, in that way where you look at an old photo and remember how different your smile used to feel. I stared at the reflection, tilted my head, waited, and then I caught it. A flicker, like a blink I didn't make, a split-second delay between me and the mirror. Not enough to scream about, just enough to whisper, "That's not me anymore." I opened my phone, scrolled through my camera roll. I don't take many selfies, but there were a few from the past month. One from the day I moved in, another at a coffee shop, captioned, "Finally breathing again." I don't remember taking them. I zoomed in, studied them. Same clothes I still owned, same background, but something about the posture, how straight I stood, how calm I looked. It felt like watching someone who had decided not to be afraid anymore. And that wasn't me. Not then. Not now.
There was one more photo tucked behind my phone case. I never put it there. It was one of the printed ones. A shot of me, asleep, in my bed, taken from the ceiling vent.
I didn't knock this time. I waited until the hallway was quiet, pressed my ear to his door, and listened. Nothing. Not even the hum of a fridge or the distant shuffle of someone home. So I picked the lock. I didn't know I knew how, but my fingers moved like they remembered, like they'd done it before. Inside, the apartment felt colder, not in temperature, in tone. The air was too still, the furniture arranged too precisely, like it was trying to task for normal. But I wasn't looking for the living room this time. I went straight to the sealed door in the back, the one I hadn't opened before, the one with the keypad. This time I knew the code. I didn't even think about it. My hand just moved. 0324. The lock clicked open. I exhaled through my teeth like my body had been holding its breath since the first chapter of this. And I stepped inside. The room was my bedroom. No, not a copy. An exact replica. Same bedding, same posters on the wall, same chipped mug on the nightstand. Even the book on the bed was the one I'd lost during the move, half-read, dog-eared on page 126. I reached for the drawer beside the bed. It slid open. Inside was a notebook, leather-bound, slightly worn. I recognized it before I even opened it, my handwriting on the first page. If you're reading this, then the forgetting didn't last. The entries were cold, clinical, like instructions to myself written without emotion, a full plan, a deliberate breakdown of how to erase what I'd done, how to rebuild identity around silence and stillness. Notes about Simon, about how I trusted his detachment, about how he would protect the version of me that could live with herself. Don't go into the room. Don't try to reconcile the timelines. You are better not knowing. But the final page, short, crooked handwriting, wasn't like the others. It read, "You'll come back eventually. Just try not to hate me when you do." I sat on the edge of the bed in the replica room, felt the walls closing in, not because they were tight, but because they fit. And I realized Simon hadn't built a copy of my room. He'd preserved it. I hadn't moved into a new apartment. I had never really moved out. There was a knock on my door the next morning. 3 soft taps. No one ever knocks here. No one should know where I live, especially not now. I opened it a crack. He was younger than Simon, mid-30s maybe, clean-cut, wearing a lanyard from a therapy center I didn't recognize. He looked at me like he knew me. "Marin." I blanked. "Sorry," I said. "You have the wrong apartment." He smiled, gentle, not surprised. "You might not remember. We were in group together. I just wanted to check in." I stared at him. "I'm not Marin." He nodded slowly, the way people do when they don't believe you but don't want to push. "You went quiet after Simon pulled you out. We weren't sure if he'd keep you grounded." "I think you're confusing me with someone else," I said again, voice sharper this time. He looked past me into the apartment. "It's still set up like the old place, huh?" I slammed the door before I could hear what else he had to say. I stood there for a long time, hand still on the knob, waiting to breathe. When I finally turned back toward the apartment, something on the bookshelf caught my eye. A photograph. I don't keep printed photos. I know that. But there it was. A group picture.
5 people. A circle of chairs behind them, a faded banner on the wall. New self, new start. And in the center, sitting between Simon and the man who just knocked, was me. Except under the photo, in thin handwriting, Marin L. Vale, January 12. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at that name like it might open a door in my brain I'd nailed shut. Because Ava Harlan is on my lease. Ava Harlan is the name I tell strangers. But Marin? Marin is the name that made Simon flinch when I first said I didn't remember him.
I didn't wait this time. I went back into Simon's apartment like I lived there, like I had the right, because maybe I did. He didn't stop me. He was sitting at the kitchen table, no lights on, like he'd been waiting in the dark. "You remember now," he said. "No," I told him. "Not enough. Just enough to be angry." He nodded. Not defensive, not smug, just tired. "You didn't want to remember, Marin." Hearing him say it felt like an earthquake in my ribs. Not because it was wrong, because it wasn't. He stood up slowly, walked past me, toward the wall behind the bookshelf. I hadn't looked closely at it before. Now I saw the outline, barely visible, of a panel. He pressed it open. Behind it, a narrow corridor, dark, narrow, dusty, connecting his apartment to mine. "You asked me to build the passage," he said quietly. "Why?" "You said you needed to be able to check in on yourself, to see her, the version of you who didn't know what she did." I stepped inside the passage. My shoes echoed against the hollow floorboards. Halfway through, I saw the wire, thin, black, wrapped along the molding, audio line. I saw the small camera lens tucked into the vent above my bed. I remembered the click, the slight delay in the mirror, the direction in my own handwriting. "This is the version you liked best." Back in Simon's apartment, I turned to him. "What did I do?" He looked away. "It wasn't illegal, but it hurt someone you cared about. You couldn't live with the memory, so you built this. You called it containment." "I'm not crazy." "No," he said, "just terrified of being real again."
I asked him to leave. Simon didn't argue. He handed me the key to both apartments, gave me one last look, the kind that said, "You'll understand later," and walked out without a word. And then I was alone. Not in Ava's apartment, not in Simon's, just in the in-between, the passage, the place I built for forgetting. I sat in the room that looked like mine, the replica, the stage. I opened the journal again, flipped past the instructions, the warnings, the fragments of control. Near the back, tucked between 2 pages, was a voice recorder. I didn't remember it until I held it, didn't want to remember it. I pressed play anyway. If you're listening to this, the version of you that asked me to hide this is gone. My voice, slightly faster, slightly sharper. Her name was Elise. She wasn't supposed to fall for you, and you weren't supposed to fall back, but you did. My breath caught. You told her you weren't ready, that she deserved more, that she'd be safer without you. So she walked away, and 3 days later, she walked into traffic. You weren't there. You didn't push her, but you did something worse. You watched her leave, and you didn't stop her. So you made a version of yourself that never met her, a clean slate. You made me. Silence. Then, if you can forgetting, or you can finally be real again. But if you're listening to this, I think you already chose. Click. I sat on the edge of the bed in the room I didn't own. I didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared at my hands like they belonged to someone else. And for the first time since I moved in, I walked to the mirror and saw the delay was gone. The next morning, I packed a bag. No furniture, no files, no photos. Just a name I wasn't ready to use, but one I was ready to remember. My name is Marin Vale. I loved someone once. I let her walk away. This time, I'm walking forward.